I'm Jane Lewis, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Friday, the 28th of November. And what a weekend of football we have coming up.
And that's been the main message today to the players, that don't expect things to come easy. Don't expect us to just be on top and flying now. We need to stay hungry, humbly hungry, not greedy.
League leaders Hearts take a trip to eye-catching Motherwell. And two teams who are definitely out of sorts face off on Saturday nights.
No excuses. I didn't feel that there was an awful lot in that game of football today, but we have to accept the fact that we're on the wrong side of another 3 goals conceded and maybe not taking some of the opportunities that came our way.
Kilmarnock and Dundee are looking to get back on track. And Celtic's trip to Hibs, just one of 3 intriguing encounters on Sunday.
It's Kieran Bowie, and he blasts the ball beyond John McCracken.
What a goal from Callum McGregor! Oh my goodness, with the left foot!
We've got all the weekend action covered.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
And for this podcast, in the company of Moira Gordon, Scottish football writer, and Rory Loy, former St Mirren, Falkirk and Dundee striker. Good to have you with us. I think we should just crack on because there's so much to get through this morning. Let's start with Saturday afternoon. Hearts travel to Motherwell. This is quite a mouth-watering tie, is it not, Moira?
Definitely. I think we look at the team that everybody was talking about at the beginning of the season, travelling to the team that everybody is still talking about in Motherwell. I mean, they just seem to be now beginning to get the results that go with the performances that people were getting excited about. So I think, I'm not sure this would be the one that Derek McInnes would desperately be keen to be going to after the defeat at the weekend. So he's going to have a couple of players back in Shankland and Halkett. He's still got a few out. It's going to be a tough one for him. But I suppose we keep saying every game for Hearts at the moment is some sort of statement game. If they can win that, go to a team that are playing as well as they were, and also that really troubled them in the last game at Tynecastle in the opening period. I mean, Hearts had to get their act together and come back, fight back from 3-0 down in that game. So it's going to be a really testing game for them. And again, I think, like so many of them, just really interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating tie, Rory. Hearts at a draw and a defeat in their last 2 games. I mean, listen, it's surely not the end of the world just yet, but after a really strong start, as Moira talked about there, you can understand why people are starting to ask questions about their form, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when they went to Paisley and they drew 2 each, people started asking questions then. That's Scottish football for you. You know, you can't slip up even slightly. I actually didn't think it was a bad result. I think if you're going to win a title, which, let's be honest, that's what all the chat's been about Hearts, if you're going to do that, you're going to drop points. You're not going to win every game. And a point in Paisley on a midweek fixture and an evening game is hardly the end of the world. The problem they've got is they've went to Aberdeen, not played particularly badly, but they've lost the game. It's a big ask to go to Motherwell and win on the back of that, as Moira touches on. So I disagree slightly. I think Derek McInnes will be quite happy with that fixture. I think he'll want to go out and prove a point and stop the doubters. A run-of-the-mill home game, can sometimes be tricky in these circumstances when you're under a wee bit of pressure. So going to Motherwell, you'll have watched them during the week against Hibs. Jens Bertolaska, who was very outspoken. I was very surprised that he came out and was so detailed about his tactics and highlighting particular players from Hibernian that he wanted to try and get at. So it's got all the makings of a fantastic game. It'll be interesting to see if Motherwell can dominate the ball as well against Hearts as they did against Hibs.
Is it different?
Yeah, I was speaking
Sorry, Jim. I'm just interested when teams score goals like Hearts have been doing. They obviously drew a blank at Aberdeen, but does that give players in the dressing room more confidence going into the next one? Because you know you're unlikely to have another game where you've got goal scorers there that they're likely to click back into place. Does that give you a little bit more confidence going into the next one?
Yeah, I don't think we'll have any concerns about scoring goals. That's the first time they've done it, and they created chances. However, they'll know that the country will be watching them, saying, "Are you going to blow up like Aberdeen?" So I don't think their worries and concerns will come from their ability to score goals. Motherwell are capable of scoring plenty themselves, so I think that the pressure will come from within, and they know everyone's watching them. Are they going to continue to drop points, or are they going to continue to pick up points and still ask the question of Celtic?
And some atmosphere we understand on Saturday as well, Moira. We think 10,000 fans could be going along to watching to watch that one. Just over 4.5 travelling fans, the rest the home fans in Fir Park. That's going to really kind of add to the atmosphere and maybe add to the pressure on Hearts as well. Do you think, or will they kind of relish that atmosphere given what they see most weeks at Tynecastle?
I don't think that'll be daunting for them. They actually love when they've got these, huge travelling crowds that go with them. It's the fans that go are really passionate. When Hearts are playing well, they always turn out in numbers. So the fact that there'll be so many there, I think actually helps them. Their away record's good this season, and they've packed out every away end and every allocation they've used up this season, I think, anyway. So it's not something new for them, and I think they'll actually relish having that huge pack in there. I think it'll help them probably.
I was speaking to Jens Bartel Askew yesterday, Rory. He says he wants his players to be hungry and humble, but not greedy. He's talking about not being overly confident. Yes, take confidence from the fact that you're in good form, you're picking up good results, but don't let complacency creep in. How vital is that message from a Motherwell point of view?
Yeah, I think they've been through the frustration already this season of playing well but not picking up the points. They're now on the other side of the coin where they're playing well and picking up points. And in credit to Motherwell, you have to say that out with Hearts, who obviously had a prolonged period of success in terms of the output of results, Motherwell's consistency in performance has probably been right up there with Hearts. It's just that they've not managed to accumulate the same amount of points. So I don't think complacency's ever slipped into their game. Maybe half an hour at Tynecastle, you could argue, when they were 3-0 up, funnily enough. But look, it's a very apt message, and if Motherwell can continue to play, I thought he would stick with the same structure and the same tactics and the same setup. Now, he's stuck to his principles in terms of the way he wants to play, but he does seem to adapt it quite considerably from team to team in terms of opposition. So, really interested. But I don't see any signs of Motherwell allowing complacency to creep in.
And they've certainly got players on form, don't they, Moira? Tawandi Maswanisi is, 8 goals in 13 league starts. That tells you all you need to know there. He's a player full of confidence. We spoke to him yesterday as well. And Stephen Welsh at the back as well. I mean, some people talking about Celtic maybe looking to bring him back from his loan spell. So they've got players who right now it's clicking for them.
That's it. There's individuals in there that are definitely hitting, really good form, but it's not just about individuals. That the way that Motherwell play is so much about as a team working hard and adhering to the coaching principles and what they've been set out to do. There's nobody. It's quite interesting that I'm talking about people staying humble because they have played with a lot of humility. They've been team players, and that's what's individuals playing really well within a system and following the directions of a manager that's allowing them to go out and be brave and to play, but also there's a structure there that they're actually working within. So I think they've got the best of everything there in terms of individuals rising to that challenge, but there's obviously the coaching's a huge part of that.
Yeah, that has the makings of being a real cracker on Saturday. Really looking forward to that one. Before we move on to Saturday night and that big game at Rugby Park, Dundee against St Mirren. And Rory, Dundee really, really struggling. They need to start trying to turn things around, don't they?
They do. And I think the issue Dundee may have is I think St Mirren have performed really, really well over recent weeks and not picked up many points at all. The law of averages, if St Mirren perform again, suggests that they're due 3 points. And from Dundee's point of view, they seem to be able to pull an iron out the fire when no one expects it and pick up 3 points. However, those are becoming more and few and far between. They beat Celtic and they've been on a dreadful run ever since. If they were to lose tomorrow to St Mirren, it becomes really difficult, and people who tipped Dundee to go down at the start of the season, who were starting to doubt themselves, then start to go, no, I think we were right to suggest that. So Stephen Presley's got a big job in his hands. I just think the outside view of Dundee's changed this season. I think under Tony Docherty, whilst yes, they finished 10th last season and they didn't have a great time of it, I think Dundee went into every game and I don't think anyone expected Dundee to go down, although they did, took it right to the wire the season before they finished in the top 6. these are the types of games under Tory Docherty where you're sitting going, oh, it's a tough one to call. I just think there's been so many decisions at Dundee that have been timed so badly. And if they were to lose tomorrow, I think that would compound everything and they would find themselves in a really, really tricky position ahead of the winter schedule.
Yeah, it's not looking too good for Dundee. From a St Mirren point of view, well, Rory touched upon it there, Moira. It's frustrating times for them. But you would think patience would be key in that. And if any manager can probably turn things around, it's probably Stephen Robinson, isn't it?
I mean, that's the thing. Stephen Robinson's pulled out the bag so many times, over producing for budgets, etc. But I do think it is a wee bit worrying for them. I know, like Rory said it, and I've said it even just a week or so ago, that, you always just expect Stephen Robinson and Hearts, Hibs, so I'll start again, St Mirren to, pull it out the bag here. But I think once you start getting a few games that they've got, I mean, they've actually got a worse record than Dundee over the last 4 or 5 games. So you think, right, when does that start affecting their confidence or people's confidence in them? It is something that is slightly worrying for them. And this is the one that they really need to be beating a team that's below them, and actually showing that the last wee run of results have been a blip rather than actually a new habit forming sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see this one and see whether they can actually deliver the way people expect them to, rather than actually maybe performing towards where their league position is and their league form is at the moment.
Right, let's move on to Saturday night then, and Kilmarnock host Dundee United with two clubs, both in the doldrums, you could say. Let's start with Kilmarnock, Rory. 6 defeats in a row. The pressure's mounting on Kettlewell, isn't it? It probably has been mounting for a couple of weeks now, if not longer.
Yeah, and Moira mentioned before about Hearts. If you're creating chances and not taking them, you believe that the following week you're going to start taking some. With Kilmarnock, there was loads of good signs, positive signs early in the season, but they're not creating too many chances. Yes, they played fairly well against Motherwell in a very short period of the second half, but decent performances have been few and far between over the last 6 fixtures. So it's not as though it's the likes of St Mirren who you're thinking, look, if they keep playing like that, the form's going to turn. This is a pivotal game for both sides, huge game. Kilmarnock have got home advantage. Stuart Kettlewell will want to take advantage of that. Their home form hasn't been great this season. So it is, you have to say that whoever was to come out on the losing side of that one is going to be under immense pressure going into the following weeks.
Yeah, Kilmarnock, obviously, they're suffering, aren't they, with injuries to key players. Also goalkeeping issues as well, Moira. Neither Beach or Oluwemi have really been that convincing. And if you've got that kind of weak link at the back in goal, that can kind of transcend through the team, can't it?
I think it definitely affects the confidence. You always say that you want to build a team from the back, get a strong defence. If you've not got a defence that's fully confident in the guy behind them, you're already got jitters in there. And then that, as you say, maybe affects everything further forward. If you have a potent goal scorer there, that maybe isn't as big an issue. But we've seen before teams, if you've not got a defence that can keep it out consistently or make it difficult to score, and you find it difficult to score at the other end, you're going to struggle to win football matches. That's the brilliant players elsewhere in the team, but unfortunately that's what you need. You need that defence that has a bit of confidence. And as I say, when confidence starts to wane, when you start getting the results that you've got there, it's hard enough to pick yourself up, let alone be picking up a goalkeeper that's chucking things around at the back. And, I think it then does start to permeate throughout the whole team. So I think confidence will soon be becoming an issue at Kilmarnock. Just look at the running results. You look at the teams round about. Everybody else is picking up points, maybe not consistently, but they're picking up points at times. Kilmarnock aren't doing that at the moment, and you can't afford to do that in a league that's this close and this tight, or you're suddenly going to find yourself tumbling down the league as they have and find yourself a bit in a relegation dogfight.
Moira mentioned picking up goalkeepers at Rory. That's something that Jim Goodwin might just have had to have done during the week with Kucherenko after his horror show last week. It's pivotal that he is in a better form. That sounds obvious to say, but will Jim Goodwin have had a bit of a dilemma to whether to stick with him or whether to give someone else a go?
No, I don't think he'll have had a dilemma at all. I don't think Kucherenko can play tomorrow. I really don't, Jane. I feel for Kucherenko to an extent. I mean, he made two really poor errors, both as bad as each other in my book. His reaction was concerning for me. I mean, he made it so outwardly obvious that he just wanted the ground to swallow him up and didn't want to be there. And people, I was in the studio last week and I'd said, look, they need to take him off because you can quite clearly see how much it's affected him. Defenders first point of call in that instance is to maybe have a wee pop at the goalkeeper. The defenders were actually trying to console him through it, which is fine. But I think he's got to show better body language if he does make a mistake. Try and instill a bit more confidence that it was a mistake and he's able to deal with it. I don't think he did that. The scenes at the end, I know it's good of Scott Bain to go up and again chat him through things, but at the same time, I just think that he's got to be stronger minded once he's made a mistake to try and put that out of his head and go on and give his team confidence that he's able to deal with it. So yeah, look, I do feel for him. Everybody makes mistakes. He's just got to learn to deal with that better. As for, I think Jim Goodwin's got to have a discussion with him and a chat with him on a human level this week. As for a professional level, he'll not be playing tomorrow.
Yeah, it's. Presumably Jim Goodwin's, had that chat. He's a very good man manager, isn't he, Moira? It's a tricky one though, isn't it? Because if you've got a player who's already at a pretty low ebb because they've had a terrible performance last week, and then to drop him, could add to that kind of fragility a little bit, couldn't it? So it is a bit of a tricky one.
Can
for
I
Jim,
just
isn't
say,
it?
Jane, quickly before Moira answers that?
Yeah.
Maybe speaking from a striker's point of view, if a striker misses 3 sitters, then he gets hammered and he gets dropped, and everybody expects him to get dropped. It's just as a goalkeeper, it's highlighted as because it ends up in a goal.
Because he's the end point, I suppose. Yeah.
Aye. So look, I do feel for Kucherenko, but I don't think you can mollycoddle him to the point where you just keep him in goals to try and save his confidence, because it's quite clearly shot anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would be a dangerous thing to do as well, wouldn't it? For the good of the team, Moira, I guess.
No, I totally agree with Rory. I was going to say that. I think, you have to handle him. He's a professional footballer. He's out there. And yeah, on a human level, you can have sympathy and you can take him and try and put an arm around him and manage him. But the manager's job is to go out there and win 3 points. And you're not doing that with somebody who doesn't look like he believes in himself, let alone instill any kind of confidence in the guys around him. So it's, at the end of the day, if you're not performing, you've dipped in form, you get taken out of the team. And I think goalkeepers sometimes are overly protected. But I think in this stage, I think they've got to the point where they can't protect him any longer. He has to be given time to maybe just step away from the spotlight and try and get his head together if he can, behind the scenes. But as I say, I totally agree with Rory. If you're not performing, you have to get a big boy. You're out there in big boy money sometimes and getting the credit when you make that brilliant save. When you're not performing, you have to make way for somebody else that can actually deliver.
Listen, we'll get to Sunday's football in just a moment, but just a reminder that you can tune in to Off the Ball on midday on Saturday. The guests this week are Gary Innes and Massimo Donati. Right, let's move on to Sunday's matches then. Hibs hosting Celtic, Rory, and that performance in Europe against Feyenoord last night. It was almost like watching the Celtic of old at times, wasn't it? Certainly with Martin O'Neill jumping about in the dugout as well. How much will that performance give them a boost ahead of the weekend one?
Oh, massive. Massive, because it was a bit of a sticky win against St Mirren. They didn't perform particularly well at all. Love Scottish football and love sitting down and watching it, but that wasn't a particularly great game to watch, I have to say. So to respond in that manner, to get the win in the last minute, and then to go out to Netherlands and get that result against Feyenoord, especially after going a goal down, and they could have crumbled because they went out to Midtjylland and they conceded a few goals within a short space of time, and they crumbled. Whereas this, for me, has shown that under Martin O'Neill they're growing and growing and growing. So that win now puts them in a position. Yes, they need to play Roma at home and Bologna away. That's 2 tough fixtures, but there's no reason now why they can't pick up enough points in that league table to ask the question of going through. So I think whilst Celtic fans are optimistic and excited about the imminent arrival of a potential new manager, I think that result last night may have got a few people thinking, "Oh, we love you, Martin."
Yeah, I think they love them anyway, to be honest. But yeah, absolutely. Ironically, Moira, likely to be his last game as interim manager. A caveat with the word likely to be. Just like Rory's touched upon there, just assess the job that he's done.
I think he's, if not quite the swagger of Celtic of old, he's certainly brought back a bit more belief, a bit more positivity around the place, even in the dressing room, and just you see it in the way the team are playing and approaching games. So he's done that, and bizarrely they brought him in and he's helped steady the ship, which is what they wanted him to do, and kept things, moving forward. But he's probably putting a bit of extra pressure on the new guy coming in. They've seen what Martin can do, seen a wee bit of growth, maybe harken back to the old days, seeing him, as you say, jumping about touchlines and just press conferences, everything the old Martin. And the new guy's going to have to come in and maintain that kind of upward trajectory and those ongoing performances and improvements. If not, then people will suddenly be calling for Martin to come back again.
Let's look at it from a Hibs point of view. David Gray certainly looking for a big reaction to that defeat against Motherwell, particularly in defence, Rory, as well.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, Jens Bertolaski was quite open about his game plan and pinpointing Grant Hanley. But away from all of that, the Hibs didn't play very well. And they got themselves in a position where before kick-off they were sitting third. Decent goal difference, starting to pick up a bit of consistency, which I think was Hibs' biggest issue. I don't think it was performance necessarily. League position, it was more just getting that consistency and performance to try and sustain staying in touch. However, they didn't play very well, so they're going to need to play much, much better tomorrow to try and get a result, even at home to Celtic, who look like they've turned a leaf under Martin O'Neill. I know it's slow progress at times and performances haven't always been there, but you have to say after Thursday they'll be buoyant. And from Hibs' perspective, they need their good players to play. Your Mulligans, your McGraths, your Boyles, Bowies, you need them to perform. They need to turn up on the day. And if they turn up on the day, they're capable of taking something off Celtic. Of course they are.
Let's move on to Rangers hosting Falkirk, and we talk about Celtic performing on Europe and how that's going to give them a boost. What effect will that performance and result, Moira, have on Rangers, do you think? And they started well enough, but once again, defensive frailties very much on show.
I think that's probably what will be on their mind and on the mind of most of the fans as well going into this one. It's not what the overall performance is, it's how quickly they can come undone with some just bad defending, and it's been too many times you've seen that in key moments, but especially without their recognised centre-half partnership. I just think there's a weakness there that is any team going up against them will look like they can exploit or will feel they can exploit, and I don't think there's many that were watching that last night, whether it was in the ground or in television, that would maybe put up an argument in defence of that defence and say, well, actually, no, they're actually there to make life difficult for you. They're not. And I think when you've got somebody like John McGlynn who can, pick teams apart and gets his own team playing, I think Falkirk will be looking forward to this.
Yeah, Falkirk are in great form right now as well, Rory, so their tails will be up. And they have the kind of players that they probably feel that they can exploit Rangers, especially at the back.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Giga and Fernandez, the issue they've got a lot of the time is that they've no awareness. They're far too high up the pitch at times. Whether it's a Brian Graham or McIver who's going to run in behind for Falkirk. Not so much Brian Graham, but I think he's actually capable because he's intelligent of getting on the end of things. Then sometimes they drop and the gap between midfield for Rangers and defence is far too big, and you've clever players picking up pockets, the likes of Calvin Miller threading through passes to Sinead Tannadice last week. So Giga's quite simply shown that he's not good enough to play for Rangers, in my opinion. Fernandes, they're going to have to be a little bit more, they're going to have to persevere a little bit more given the money they paid. He's shown he's dangerous in the opposition's box. But from Falkirk's point of view, if they can expose the gaps between Rangers' defence and midfield and Giga and Fernandes' inability to deal with balls over the top, and Yengi last week, even when the ball came into feet, he bullied the two of them. So there's opportunity there for Falkirk. They'll have learned from their drubbing at Parkhead as well, you'd imagine. Rangers aren't as strong as Celtic either, in my opinion. So given the league position they're in for Falkirk, they've nothing to fear. And I think the message won't be, let's go out and try and make it difficult for Rangers and try and get something. I think it'll be, let's win this and go above them. Let's
just quickly touch upon Livingston against Aberdeen. And Livingston, well, they put up a pretty decent show against Rangers, didn't they, Moira? And that penalty controversy, you sense it's still eating away at them a little bit, but it could add fire to their belly, couldn't it?
That's it. Anger can fuel you at times. And I mean, David Martindale's a good guy for being able to take something like that and use it as motivation. It's going to be a tough one. Aberdeen are beginning to find a little bit of form. So again, that'll be something for them to be slightly worried about. But I don't think Livingston go out and fear teams that are sitting above them necessarily. I think they go out and they try and make things difficult. It's not just about making things difficult.
Sorry? Everyone, if that was the case.
Well, that was the case. But that's the thing, I don't think they fear anyone. So I think they go out and try and play their own game. They're aware that, man for man, they've not got the best team or the best squad, but they'll still go out and try and make the best of it, and they'll make sure that if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to earn it. So Aberdeen can't afford to be, heavy-legged after midweek game or the match against Hearts, where they had to work hard in that game as well, because Hearts did control large parts of it. So, they've had a heavy week at Aberdeen. So again, Livingston will be looking at that and thinking that maybe there's a few vulnerabilities that they can exploit.
Yeah, they've had a heavy week, haven't they, Rory? But they've had a conflicting week as well. That brilliant result against Hearts in terms of what it would have done for morale and all the rest of it. And then last night in Europe, letting the lead slip, that could affect them in a bit of a negative manner.
Yeah, listen, I think Aberdeen's focus, it's obvious as it is to say, it'll be domestically. I think it would have been good for Scottish football and it would be good for Aberdeen to pick up 3 points on the European stage and, get that win registered on the board and, move up the table slightly more than they will have done. But their domestic form has been good. Performances haven't always been there. I don't think Hearts deserved to lose last week. I thought Aberdeen were slightly fortunate. However, they are picking up wins now. And if they can continue to pick up wins over the coming weeks, then all of a sudden you've got, potentially Hearts, Rangers, Hibs, Celtic, Aberdeen, bunched relatively tightly together. And if Falkirk and Motherwell can keep up their form, we're in for a really, really exciting time.
Yep, it's plenty to look forward to this weekend, that is for sure. That's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Moira and Rory, and thank you very much for listening as well. The weekend football coverage, well, it starts imminently actually as Scotland women's take on Ukraine in a friendly. The BBC Sport Scotland website and iPlayer will bring you live coverage from 11 o'clock this morning. And then tonight at 7:30 on the BBC Scotland channel, there's live coverage of the Scottish Cup third round when Lithgow Rose against Queen's Park. Sportsound, of course, will keep you updated on all of the cup fixtures over the weekend. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast, bright and early every day. So, to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have your push notifications turned on in your phone. Whatever game you're at this weekend, enjoy your football. Bye-bye.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.